Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire Community Meeting for Sunday, May 29th, 2022. My name is Chris Barth, and I'm the Public Information Officer with Pacific Northwest Team 2, or PNW2 as you'll hear us refer to ourselves as. Pacific Northwest Team 2 assumed command of the Hermits Peak, the north zone of the Hermits Peak Calf Canyon fires at 7 o'clock this morning. The current size of the fire is 314,750 acres. We are at 50% containment, and as of this morning, there was 3,001 personnel assigned to the fire. There are 634 miles of perimeter around the Hermits Peak Calf Canyon fires. With that, I'm going to start off our meeting tonight with an operational update from our Pacific Northwest Team 2 Operations Section Chief, Kyle Cannon.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Kyle Cannon, Operations Section Chief with Pacific Northwest Team 2 for the North Zone. So the last couple of days we had a real good exchange of information with Southwest Team 1, and we did our best to learn from their 30-plus days of experience here on the incident, and I think that went pretty well. So today was another red flag day, our third in a row, and so far in the North Zone, really no fire perimeter growth at all, so that's good news. But with that south wind, we are focusing on the north side of the North Zone, and in particular, the area right around Angostura to the west of the 518 road. We still have those hotshot crews in there, focusing on holding and securing that piece, making sure there's no more spots in there, and doing their best to hold that area in there. We also still had hotshot crews looking at moving farther down to the south towards the Sangre de Cristos and trying to secure that into the high alpine area around Serpent Lake. If you remember, we pulled four repellers out of that area off the Alpine yesterday. We pondered putting some additional load of repellers in there today, but with the winds, we decided we'd hold off until that was a little more amenable to make that operation happen. Another area of focus is over here by Chacon and up by Martinez Pond. That whole area along the 518, we still have a lot of resources, crews and engines in there, focusing on holding that piece, mopping it up, and securing it with that southerly wind. We also had crews and engines along the 121 corridor from Chacon down towards Holman, doing their best to get that mopped up and staying secure in there, along with the Baker River hotshots were in there as well. We also put quite a bit of attention over here on the 434 corridor, holding and patrolling and making sure that all stayed in place as well. If you remember yesterday, we had a piece of our equipment start a little fire, 1/10 of an acre, that we picked up pretty quickly, but with that we evaluated the fire environment and decided that perhaps it wasn't wise to have a bunch of equipment out in the woods making sparks. And with the conditions we had today, we pretty much made that same choice, although we did have some of our equipment that doesn't create sparks continue to work in that area. We did have some of our equipment take that day and transport it around into a better location, so when we can get in there and start working, we'll be in better shape. So that's the update I have for you for the North Zone. Honored to be here and appreciate it.
Thank you, Kyle, for the update on the North Zone. Next, we're going to be moving down to the South Zone with California Interagency Incident Management Team 5 Operations Section Chief, John Chester.
Good evening, everybody. Once again, Operations Section Chief John Chester. So just kind of give you a quick rundown of today's work. So up in the Big Pine area, Young Canyon, Calf Canyon, the work continued up in there with doing the work around the structures as that fire backs down the hill, and making sure that we're up there providing the protection to that community. Still answering service calls as they come in for the Alpha Bravo divisions of Branch 11 over here on the western side of the fire, coming down to Las Vegas and across the southern portion of the fire. As we come around into the Boreas Peak, lower and upper Colonias areas, continuing the good work, strengthening those control lines in there, mopping up, working in from the fire's edge towards the interior, extinguishing hot spots, and working on that. Coming up just a little bit here, Into Bull Canyon, still work. We got some direct line that still needs to be put in through there. Still working on that. It's very rough terrain in there, so crews are making progress getting that completed. And then coming on up into the Elk Mountain, that area is still looking good. The smoke that you're seeing or could be seeing up there in the Spring Mountain area, that stuff is still burning due to the rough terrain and the nature of the hazardous fire weather and the conditions that we've had over the last few days. We're pulled back off, going indirect in those areas. Continue on up into the wilderness on the Hamilton Mesa. That work is still progressing with crews. We've got upwards of 100 folks spiked out up in there, and they're continuing that work, building those control lines and preparing that area and looking for alternatives further to the west. So there's been a couple questions that have come in. Just like to take a few minutes to go through those and talk about those. And so one of the things is for the folks that might see smoke or stuff that is alarming or concerning to them, you can always call our information hotline. Those folks are in there between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. and you're more than welcome to give them a call and they will forward that stuff on to the first responders who are out there doing that work. If you see something after those hours or there's something that comes up that you're really alarmed or concerned with, you're always welcome to call the 911, and those folks will get in touch with our communication center, and we will dispatch the appropriate personnel to go to those calls. So please, if you see something, speak up. We like to hear that, and we want to help ensure that the communities that we've already gotten protected stay that way. So we appreciate those calls, and we look forward to being able to answer those calls. A couple other things. Folks are concerned with the upper lower Colonias area and that corner there as we start to button that up and making the good progress that we are and asking about when they can return to their homes over here in the Pecos Valley and the communities that have been evacuated and displaced by the fire. So one of the things I just take a few minutes to mention is the Big Pine area, and it's a good example of why we just don't let people go back in when it looks like it's quiet. And so that area up there had been quiet for upwards of probably a month with no heat and no smoke showing in that area. And with the critical fire weather that has come in over the past few days, that picked back up, and we had to move people back in there to provide that protection in the community. And so as we get out here working in this area, we continually evaluate where we are with the fire behavior, the potential for it to stay within the containment lines or to get out of those containment lines. And we're doing a lot of good work in there to strengthen and hold that, so that when we do, working with the sheriff's office, give that notice that you can move back into your homes, that we won't have to come back and say, hey, you got to leave again in the event that we get another weather change that potentially pushes fire from up here or in one of these areas, when one of those maybe large islands burns up and causes some spots or something to come out. We don't want to have re-evacuations in those areas. So we're really focusing on making sure this is buttoned up so that when you go back, you can go back for good. The other thing, asking kind of specifically what the crews are doing in there. So building a containment line, whether it's with a dozer, hand crew, or engines, and folks, what they're doing is they're taking all the burnable vegetation, trees, logs, bushes, and they're cutting that stuff up, and they're moving it from where we want the fire's edge, and we move it off and relocate it to another area, and then we scrape all the burnable litter, the forest litter that's on the ground. We scrape all that away. We remove it to where it's down to just bare dirt soil. So there's no combustible stuff left in that soil. And so that top layer, we often refer to it as a duff layer, or duff layer is typically what it is. And so what that is that still has potential to burn. And if we leave that there, fire can come across that and leave from our containment line into places we don't want fire to go. So specifically, as we're building hand lines, that's kind of what we're doing, and with the tractors, that's what we're doing, is we're getting that down so that there's no burnable vegetation left that we can stop the fire spread on. Mop up, when we go into mop up, I talked about this the other day. It's kind of like campfire safety. So it's putting water on it, sometimes not putting water on it, but it's stirring it up with the dirt It's getting that all the heat out of it. You kind of hand feel it to make sure it's cold. And that's a long, tedious process, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort. And so you think about, this area and how large it is, and it takes a lot of time. And it just, it's every day after day we go back in and we continue that work, and we start on the control line and we start working our way in. And as we do that, it's just, we grid out. So, you picture a line of people, and you walk along and you're checking for hot spots, looking for smokes, and you get down on your hands and knees, you use your hand tools, you dig that stuff up, you grub it into the dirt, kind of like if you were preparing a garden to plant. So you're just rototilling that stuff up with hand tools, and very strenuous and physical labor, and those folks have been doing that in some rough conditions. It's not always just great dirt, it's rocky and hard to do that. So specifically, that's kind of what those folks have been doing in there. And just day after day, once we've got it to a place where the control lines are in. So just continuing to work that. And as we get that and we feel confident about it, you will start seeing this black line appear along this red edge as we get those places strengthened and secured as we move along. I think that was the kind of the questions that we had come up, and hopefully I've answered those to your satisfaction. Please continue to submit those questions. And just ask for those clarifications as you guys get them, or if you need them. So appreciate it. Thank you. And that concludes our ops update for tonight.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the update on the South Zone and for addressing those questions that have been coming in. I also want to thank you for sharing and reminding folks that they can call the public information line or reach us on our email if they do want to ask us questions or share any photos that they've seen or anything like that. If they want to reach out to us, they certainly can. So thank you for sharing that, John. Next, we're going to go to long-term fire behavior analyst, Joe Hernandez, to talk about the fire weather and the fire behavior.
Good evening. Joe Hernandez, fire analyst for the Calf Canyon Fire, here this evening to share a little bit about the weather forecast that we have for the next week and what that's going to mean for the fire behavior. So let's go to the weather matrix here. So for tomorrow, Monday, May 30th, we're going to see conditions very consistent with what we've seen the last several days. We're going to have a red flag warning, low relative humidities, and high winds. Moving into Tuesday, the winds are going to die down a little bit, but we're still going to see dry conditions. It's not going to be a red flag, but we are expecting critical fire weather. Starting on Wednesday, we're going to start to see some moisture move into the area. We're going to have higher relative humidities in through Friday, lower wind speeds, but with that, we're also going to see a 20 to 30% chance of thunderstorm developments, which could mean some gusty, erratic winds and the possibility of some lightning. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Moving into the weekend and into next week, we expect another drying and warming trend, but not with winds that we've seen the last few days, at least at this point. Moving back to the map, down in the southwest corner of the fire, there is some activity right now, but with the prevailing winds that we have, the models are showing the fire wanting to kind of burn back up into itself. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Along this western side, there is a little bit of heat in there, but we're keeping a very close eye. And again, the winds are wanting to really pin that back into the fire itself. Up here on the northwest corner, there is some potential there with the winds that we do have. But like you heard, there's a lot of really good work going in there. A lot of resources in there making sure that that's secure. And so far, we haven't seen anything come out of there. Here along the eastern side of the fire, you may see a little bit of interior smoke, but with all the good work that's been done in there over the last several weeks, that's maintaining securely, and we're not really having a lot of concerns out of there at this time. And that's it for the weather and the fire behavior.
Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate that update. Next, we're going to go to San Miguel County Sheriff Chris Lopez.
Good evening. Thank you for tuning in once again, and I really just want to touch on the day and as we continue to deal with this critical fire weather forecast. So I know tomorrow we have one more day of critical fire weather, and then we're moving into a little bit better weather. But with that, we also have some winds which are coming out of the east on Tuesday and on Wednesday, and the wind speeds aren't as high, but we do have those winds which are going to be pushing back towards that Pecos corridor, and that's very concerning for us. I really feel confident in the work that the team's been doing, and I guess that'll really tell us how those lines are going to do here pretty quick in the next few days. So, in terms of repopulating, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of planning, and also wanting to be able to feel comfortable that we're allowing people to get back into their homes safely, and we're not, again, like operations is saying, we're not going to have to worry about going in there and pulling them back out again. As safety is always our top priority in terms of dealing with the public. So just bear that in mind. I know I've been prior to this critical fire weather event, I spent several days kind of letting people know that it was coming and what we were up against. And now that we're almost through it, things are still looking good. I know some of the people were calling today and saying, well, they're not seeing any smoke. Well, that could possibly be because the winds are so strong that it's laying the column over, so you might not be able to see that smoke if it is there. 'Cause I think we had today pretty close to what we had for tomorrow, which was 27 with gusts to 50. I think it was 33 with gusts to 50, something like that today, if I remember correctly. So it's pretty substantial wind that we're seeing. Fortunately for us, it's pushing back into the fire and away from that Pecos corridor, so it's giving them a continued opportunity to continue to improve on the work that they've already done. So hats off to these gentlemen once again, and like I keep telling you, we're discussing repopulation on a daily basis, more than one time a day, and our hope is to get you in there sooner than later. So I just want to reiterate that fact. Once again, operations gave an update about that Big Pine area, Calf Canyon subdivision, and the good work that's going in there. Unfortunately, we did have to re-evacuate that area, something that we definitely try not to do, but it did happen. And again, I did mention that there was a big unburned island there, which caused a little bit more issues for us, being that we had those real strong winds, and it was able to reignite some of that area again. So just be aware. A couple of other things I want to mention is also operations talked about smokes that you might be seeing in the interior, and the possibility of that happening, and what to do in the case that does happen. But just be prepared that we could see smokes for several more weeks, and there is still a lot of unburned fuel within the fire's perimeter that we have to keep an eye out on. So do your due diligence and be safe. There's still a lot of hazards out there. Fire weakened trees, with the winds we're having. I mean, we could even have issues with power lines, all the stuff that we might normally get when we have these kind of winds that you have to be aware of. And also policing ourselves in this time of really bad weather conditions for fire. We do have our fire restrictions in San Miguel County. We need to be cognizant of that. If you see your neighbors making fire, give us a call law enforcement so we can go deal with that, or just go tell them to put it out, not to make another mistake. Because as we continue to try and deal with this fire and putting it out, we don't need to deal with another one. So just keep that in mind. Everybody do their part, and let's get through this. Now, with that being said, I've been reporting about the other work that's going on with all of our partners, and also in our flood mitigation and planning. As that quickly approaches with monsoon season, if we have a monsoon season, I know some years have been good and other years have been really bad. But as we continue to look at what's happening, as the Bear team continues to work, we have gotten some burn severity maps in, and there is some areas that got hit really hard in that Gallinas corridor, in that Tecolote corridor, and in some of the other areas as they continue to develop those maps. So as we continue to plan for that and get ready for that, we're going to have a bunch more information coming up here in the very near future. But I also want to give out the website I had given out, about a week ago, and it's afterwildfirenm.org. One more time, it's afterwildfirenm.org. And if you get on there, it gives you a whole bunch of information and ideas in terms of dealing with your place, your property after a wildfire. And that also includes if you're expecting flooding, like I'm telling you that we are expecting flooding if we do get those monsoons. And I just mentioned two areas where we did see a lot of high severity burn. And so we need to start looking at that sooner than later for sure. And if you get on that website, there's a piece of prior to flooding, some of the stuff that you can start doing to mitigate some of the issues that you might see. And of course, your local government, state government, federal government are also working to put together some plans to work on really getting through that part of it as well. So, I'm just letting you know so that way you can start preparing for what's next, and we can all prepare together and get through that part of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Those great reminders about safety, and as folks have seen on the reader, that we did post that link to after wildfires NM. So we want to make sure folks see those links. As Celeste mentioned last night, great transition with Southwest Team 1 up here in the North Zone, and we do really want to provide you that same level of customer service that you have been getting, and make sure you know that those same places you're getting information will continue to be available to you, whether it's on InstaWeb or the phone lines that were shared earlier, or it's out in the public with our folks that are out meeting folks face to face to make sure that the most current fire information is being shared with everybody that has been affected by this fire and everybody that's visiting this beautiful area. So thank you for those updates and those reminders, Sheriff. Next, we're going to hear from Pacific Northwest Team 2, Incident Commander Jason Loomis.
All right, good evening, everybody. Jason Loomis, Pacific Northwest Team 2 Incident Commander Trainee. I'm representing both the North Zone and South Zone. Both incident commanders, Dustin Mueller remains in command on the South Zone. And so I want to anchor into a couple of different terms that we've heard over the course of this meeting. And that's really rooted in transition. And so as you heard, Pacific Northwest Team 2 took command of the incident, North Zone of the incident at 0700 this morning. And wonderful package from Southwest Team 1. We had an extra day to shadow with those folks and really get a good grip on all the complexities and nuances with the activity up here in the North Zone. We're also going to go through another transition, and that is California Team 5 will be welcoming in Southwest Team 2, commanded by David Bales. They are shadowing as we speak and be shadowing tomorrow with the transfer of command scheduled on Tuesday. So you're going to hear a lot of new voices, see a lot of new faces over the course of the next couple of days, and that's important. And it's important for us that we maintain that continuity of operations and that everything is operating as seamless as possible. That's not only for the firefighter and the responders, but for you as the public and for the communities that we are honored to serve. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of transition, both the long-term analysts and both operations section chiefs talked about fire behavior and the upcoming weather. So we do have a transition. We're in day 3 of potentially 4 straight days of red flag conditions. The weather has really tested the efforts of the firefighters and the operation. And so far, things are remaining pretty good overall, in particular up here on the North Zone. We'll wait and see how things come into play on the South Zone over the course of the next 24, 48 hours, but we have another transition coming in, that transition of weather. So yes, we have the forecast of lightning coming in potentially, but that could also bring some much needed and welcome precipitation. So we'll be monitoring that closely, and then behind that looks like some drying. So we're in this cycle of little pulses of moisture followed up by drying. So a lot of transition, a lot of changes coming our way. We just want to make it as least of an impact for you all and provide that same level of customer service that you've received for 55 days or so since this incident started. So thank you all. Appreciate all the support, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate that. Again, as in the vein of being as open and transparent and providing frequent updates and clear information to you all, I know that we have folks that are answering a lot of the questions that are coming in the meeting. Appreciate that. Thank you for putting your comments in Facebook Live, and we are trying to answer those. There was one question that I do want to circle back to Operations Section Chief Kyle Cannon, just so he can address that for the good of everybody watching tonight. And that question, Kyle, is the 518 from Homan upwards to Tres Ritos through Angostura. Could you speak about 518 Road, please?
Yeah, definitely. With that southerly wind, this whole northern part of the fire is a focus area for us. So definitely 518, or it's the Holman up the 518 through up to Angostura is definitely in our sights as area to really focus on. So we actually have 3 divisions worth of equipment in that area: Division Lima, Kilo, as well as a strike team of structure folks that are all involved in along this whole corridor, as well as up towards Martinez Pond, and then up this way from Chacon as well. So this whole area is a focus, and it will be again tomorrow with that forecast of strong winds, red flags, and winds out of the south. So we'll be in there again tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for addressing that. And again, thank you for the comments that are coming in Facebook. We appreciate those. We do look forward to hearing the things you are concerned about so we can address them in meetings such as this, as well as our operational videos that are produced in the morning, and make sure we're focusing in on those areas that are important to everybody here in our updates that are produced daily. So I do want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and as a closing reminder to stay safe during these critical fire weather conditions, especially during the last few days of the Memorial Day weekend. So thank you, and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.